The revolution is upon us. The future of physical music is in our hands. Join the fight. This is the WaxCast.
Hey, we're live. Are we live?
We are live.
I think we're live. One day we're going to get it right. Maybe today. It could be today.
Probably
It could be today. I am TJ.
I am Andy.
And this is the WaxCast presented by GetItOnVinyl.com. For those who are unfamiliar with the format, you shouldn't be, because we talk about the vinyl record industry and those who are important to keeping the vinyl community alive. So we've had a really cool week on the website.
Yeah, definitely. A lot going on. One thing definitely sticking out with us, though, was a review that you actually wrote.
Yeah.
Was with for Craig Smith, Maitreya Kali.
Love is our existence.
Love is our existence.
Yeah, there's that. But Andy can put a bigger graphic on.
Here we go.
Hey, look at us. We're all technical and getting cool graphics on now. So
I was supposed to put other stuff up there too. But
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But one thing, this really struck us as a really cool release, and we're getting a lot of people were telling us how much they liked it, and the community was responding really well.
Yeah.
And so we thought we'd take it one step further. And we thought, hey, let's reach out to the people who put this together. And so tonight we have a very special guest, Mr. Mike Stax, who we're going to bring in here in just a second. Mike is the author of Swim Through the Darkness, My Search for Craig Smith and the Mystery of Maitreya Kali, the biography of Craig Smith, and he's also one of the founders of the new label, Maitreya Apache Music, which Love is Our Existence is put out on. So we're going to bring Mike in here in just a second. But if you're joining...
We got him on there.
We got him on already. There he is. So if you have questions, we're going to be asking him a lot of questions. But if you have questions along the way and you're on Facebook, go ahead and leave a comment, and we'll try to get Mike to answer them as well. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. Tell us, how did you become interested in the life of Craig Smith?
It all began when I heard this record, which I'll show you right here. It's called Apache, and it's actually a double album of Apache, and the other album's called Inca, and it was credited to Maitreya Kali. And it's a really strange-looking record with these homemade graphics, and then these bizarre liner notes and credits that say that Maitreya is going to be crowned king of the world in the year 2000. These records were released in really tiny pressings, like probably less than 100 were pressed in the early 70s, and became kind of a collectible among psychedelic fans. And anyway, I got my hands on a reissue of it, and I put it on. I was expecting some kind of pretty crazy, kind of unfocused music based on what I saw of the album art. And I was really astonished because the quality of the songwriting and the quality of the singing and the music was really high. Some of the songs sounded to me like the Buffalo Springfield or the Byrds. And then there were also these acoustic songs that were really haunting and beautifully sung. And reading the liner notes, I thought, and the pictures on the album cover just showed this strange hippie-looking guy, and obviously from the liner notes he was mentally disturbed. He really thought that he was the next coming of Buddha and Christ and Muhammad and Buddha and Hitler all rolled into one. All these people were cited on the liner notes. So I wondered how this disturbed person could have made this beautiful music, and I knew there had to be a story there. So I started digging a little bit, using the notes on the album as sort of a map, and discovered that Maitreya Kali was this guy, Craig Smith. And this was the year 2001 when I first heard this, by the way. So already the trail was pretty cold, but I began to piece together the story, and I found out that he was now homeless, living on the streets of LA, and that he'd been in a band called the Penny Arcade, produced by Mike Nesmith of the Monkees. And that's what some of the music on these albums was. So I started tracking down people that knew Craig and began to sort of piece together this really strange story. I discovered that he'd been in a group called the Good Time Singers that were on the Andy Williams Show. So he began with this super commercial, mainstream, white bread, wholesome show business background, and then ended up on the very fringes of society as a sort of homeless, almost Charles Manson type guy with a Black Widow spider tattooed on his forehead. So it was just a story that kept, layer after layer kept uncovering, and it took me 15 years to sort of piece together the story that became the book Swim Through the Darkness. And even then, there's still a lot of mystery surrounding what happened.
Wow. How long did the book take you to research and write and to finally complete?
Well, as I said, all told, it was about 15 years. It was hard to know when to stop. I really wanted to talk to Craig and get his story from him, but he was homeless up in Los Angeles, and I was down in San Diego, and very difficult to reach. Eventually, I found a couple of people that would see him on the streets. There were certain places in North Hollywood and Studio City where he'd frequent. So I would go up there and try to find him at these places, but he was never there when I was. So I was never able to talk to him. And but the people that did talk to him told me, there wasn't much you could get out of him. He was very withdrawn, and he'd definitely had suffered mentally a lot. And so by the time I was nearing completion of the book, he died on the streets in a park, in a sleeping bag in a park. So it really had a tragic end. And for a while there, I didn't even know if I wanted to finish the book because the ending was such a depressing end. But I think I found a way to add a little bit more of an uplifting ending to the book.
Sure. If you're just joining us, we are talking to Mike Stax, biographer of Craig Smith, Maitreya Kali, his book, and also the founder of Maitreya Apache Music, who just put out Love Is Our Existence. So if you have a question for Mike, make sure you drop it in the Facebook comments there, and we'll do our best to have him answer that. Moving on, though, how did you come into possession of the unreleased material for Love Is Our Existence?
It was really all down to finally, during the whole time I was researching the book, 15 years, I really wanted to talk to Craig's family. I knew he had a couple of brothers and a sister. And of course, they were hard to track down because Smith is such an impossible name to find. But I did find his brother Gary, and I sent him letters, and I left him voicemails, and he never responded. And I assumed, rightly, because they didn't really want to talk about Craig because of his mental illness and things that had happened with the family. It was really a dark family secret for them, and they didn't really want to make that public. But as soon as the book came out, in fact, right when the book came out, Gary finally dug out a letter that I'd written to him, I think 10 years earlier, and called me and said, this is Gary Smith, Craig's brother, and maybe we should talk. So I went up to see him up in LA, and with a lot of trepidation, because I just written this book about his schizophrenic brother who died homeless, and I walked into Gary's apartment, and he had on the dining room table stacks of tapes and acetates and photographs of Craig and his music. And it was pretty overwhelming, really, because as I said, I spent 15 years, and it would sometimes be months just to dig out one little kernel of information, or one photograph or whatever. But now there was just a wealth and abundance of stuff. And he started playing me some of these acetates, which Craig had recorded back in the late 60s and early 70s, mostly the late 60s. And they were amazing. These were all songs that were not on the Apache and Inca albums. And the quality of them was really good. So, Gary and I, we spent a whole afternoon talking about Craig and talking about what to do, and I said we have to get this music out there. So we made a deal, and he agreed to let me release the records. In fact, we formed Maitreya Apache Music together as partners in order to release Craig's music. And it took about a year or so to work on remastering and restoring the sound and getting all the packaging and the liner notes together, because we really wanted to do this right. And I'm really pleased with how it turned out.
That kind of leads us into the next couple of questions. How did you decide from this trove of music which songs to include on the album?
It was a process. First of all, I transferred everything, and started making playlists and juggling them around and listening for months and months. I listened to nothing else but these songs. And in many cases, there were 2 or 3 different versions of the same song. So sometimes only slightly different, sometimes quite different. And the decision was really based on which songs I felt were the strongest, which ones were still in the best condition as well. That was a factor. And just which ones that would hold together as an album of his work.
Excellent. I see we have a lot of people jumping in on the Facebook Live, and they're jumping in. So if you have a question for Mike Stax, please just go ahead and drop a comment there, and we'll do our best for him to get to it. Moving on, though, tell us about the remastering process. I mean, you had decade-old tapes and acetates. That must have been quite the process to remaster that. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, it was. I'd worked with acetates before, and it really is down to how good the condition is of the disc. If it's not been played many times, they're usually, pretty good, just pretty similar to mastering off vinyl. So you just do a nice clean transfer and do as little as possible. I mean, most of these songs are just Craig playing acoustic guitar and singing. So very basic production. So there was very little in the way of groove distortion or anything like that. So I worked with Mike Camus at Unearthing Studios here in San Diego, and the decision we made was to try to do as little as possible to these. We didn't want to put it through any noise filters, which you can do to remove surface noise, but it takes all the air out of it, all the room out of it, and it just flattens it. So in some cases there were ticks and pops, little scratches, and we just went through individually by ear and took those out. And other than that, it was just a matter of Mike has great ears. It was just a matter of EQing everything, and so that the levels were similar and it was as clean and pure as possible. And that was really our philosophy, to just do the minimum that we had to do.
Perfect, Mike. We just got a comment for you that I wanted to make sure that you saw from Corbett Shimming. He says, "Thanks for your amazing research on Craig's life and work."
Well, thank you, Corbett. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, people wonder why they would be interested in Craig Smith, a guy nobody's heard of, and why write a book about a completely unknown person. And it's really down to the strength of his music. He was an immensely talented guy who just happened to make some bad choices and had some bad luck. And otherwise, I really think he would have been a success. Back in the 60s, the Monkees recorded one of the songs he'd written. Andy Williams recorded 2 songs he'd written. Glenn Campbell. These are all acts that had no shortage of people providing them with top quality songs, but they chose to record things that Craig had written. So that's a measure of how talented he was. So I encourage people to, just listen to what might have been. There's no, if he hadn't have basically gone mad, he really could have been very successful, I feel.
Mike, why was it important for you to release this album on vinyl specifically? I know it's available on all the formats, but this is a really great deluxe package with extensive liner notes, a great pressing. Why was the vinyl format so important for you to put it out on?
Well, vinyl is the format as far as I'm concerned, and everything else is just supplemental to that. For it to be a real album, what I consider a real album, it had to be on vinyl. That seems to be, to me, that feels something like something permanent and tangible, and I think it's what I feel like Craig's music deserved to be on a proper album, not just a dinky throwaway CD or a download. It needed to be, in this format that, you guys know as well as I do, that this is, there's something special about vinyl, the way it sounds, the way it feels, and it also, what the opportunities it gives you as far as the packaging with the artwork. So, I made the decision, along with Gary, to do a gatefold cover, because the story needed to be told and it needed a lot of space. So there's a 5,000 word essay with information that wasn't in the book, a lot of photos that I hadn't put in the book as well. And I just wanted it to be the best and the best pressing and kind of spare no expense on that, because this probably would only be done once. Certainly it was the first time it was going to be done and the first time this music is going to be presented. So let's pull out all the stops and do it right.
Excellent. I'm sure is a $1 million question for a lot of people who are fans of Craig's music. Are there any other plans to release any additional materials on the new label?
There's definitely plans. One thing I'd like to do, obviously, is to release the Apache and Inca albums. They were available on a reissue out of from Germany, which happened, back at the beginning of the 2000s. And that sold out very quickly, and even copies of that are selling for $400 or $500 now. Even the CD they did is selling for like $150, $250. So
Wow.
It's time to put out an affordable reissue of that and better quality. There's some more unreleased material that we didn't include on Love Is Our Existence, and hopefully more stuff will be surfacing. Craig was very prolific, and I'm aware of a lot of songs that he wrote that we've not found any copies of yet. So hopefully some songwriting demos will surface from publishing companies or in people's collections.
So there's still a lot of unheard music out there to be consumed. There's still a lot to be heard.
Yeah, there's still quite a lot to be heard. There's for a while, Craig had a duo with Chris Ducey called Chris and Craig, and they recorded for Capitol Records. Only one single was released in 1966, but there's a whole album's worth of material by Chris and Craig. Some of it's in the Capitol Vault. Some of it we have. I didn't include it on Love Is Our Existence because I feel it's a separate, it has a different feel. It's a collaboration with Chris, and it would only have to be done with Chris's approval. But there's some really fantastic recordings that they did together. There's a version of Wings, the Tim Buckley song, produced by Nick Venet with a full orchestra, recorded at Capitol Records in 1967, and it's absolutely spectacular. I mean, I don't know why they didn't release it as a single. For some reason they shelved it, but it's just a remarkable recording. We have the acetate of that, and but I'd like to get the master tapes and release that properly as part of a Chris and Craig album.
Man, that's amazing. We certainly hope that comes to fruition soon in the future. So
absolutely.
Mike, I can't thank you enough for joining us, and for everybody who's been watching. This has been an eye-opening experience, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Thank you, TJ. It's been a pleasure.
And just with your permission, we're gonna play the song "Rainbow Colors."
Yeah, please do. Share it with everybody.
Thank you. We're gonna pause to do that.
Dark is the love we are knowing. Shaded rooms and dim candles glowing. portrait that our love is painting. Kiss me, talk to me, all emotions warm and real. Deeper and deeper, don't think, only love and feel. For I see hues unfolding, I see a sculpture molding, and we won't stop until the rainbow colors fill the portrait that our love is painting. And I see hues unfolding, I see a sculpture molding, and we won't stop until rainbow colors fill the portrait that our love is painting. Deep and dark is the love we are knowing. Shaded rooms and dim candles glowing, swirling round deeper, our love is found. No, we won't stop until the rainbow colors fill the portrait that our love is painting. And we won't stop until the rainbow colors fill the portrait that our love is painting.
All right. Well, Mike, again, thanks so much for joining us and for letting us play that track. That was really great. So, you guys, where can we get the album? If people are watching, where can they buy the album Lovers Our Existence?
You can buy it on my website, which is ugly-things.com. There's a web store there where you can buy the album and the CD. It should also be available at good record stores. And as far as digitally, if you want to go that route, it's iTunes and Amazon. But the first pressing of the album is already sold out, and the second pressing should be coming in a couple of weeks. So it seems to be being really well received so far. And I appreciate your great review, and thanks for having me today.
Oh, thanks so much.
Definitely,
and
thank you.
You're watching on any of our other channels after this interview on YouTube or anything, we'll make sure we'll put a link to it below this video so people can pick that up. So make sure to check that out and support this great new label. And there's a legacy here of this music that needs to be kept alive. And so we are honored to be part of that and speaking with you about that. So that's the WaxCast for this week. This is a new format and with the live stream and everything, but there's about 1 million ways to watch it, hear it. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube, but also on the iTunes and Stitcher, and of course, get it on vinyl.com.
Yep.
So, and that's the best way to really watch it because or listen to it, because it's the best website out there.
That's right.
For all your vinyl needs. That's what we are. So we've been doing this for a long time, and that's what we do. So thanks so much for joining us. And we do this every week. We're gonna see you next week at 7:30.
7:30 next week. We're gonna be bumping it up.
7:30 next week, Mountain Standard Time. Like us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all those, but we don't Snapchat. Damn it, we don't.
I don't know if I want to.
I don't know how to do that. Okay, so hit us up there. Stay in touch. Talk to us. You are the vinyl community, and we want to connect with you. That's what the WaxCast is all about. We want to connect with the vinyl community. Are you a part of the vinyl community? Get in contact with us. We want to put you on just like we just put Mike on. We want to talk to you. So stay in touch. We'll see you next week.
He said it all.